Hey guys, and welcome back to Mike and his whiteboard. My name is Mike, this is my whiteboard, and today we're talking about theta. So over the last few days, we've talked about delta, we've talked about gamma, and how they're related to each other. So just a quick recap, delta is the rate of change of an options price, and gamma is the rate of change of delta. So those are two tied together pretty tightly there, but theta is a little bit different. So when we're talking about theta, we're talking about the rate of decay of an options price, all else equal. So what we're going to do today is kind of basically look at two different scenarios. So we're going to look at a 45 DTE option or days till expiration option, and we're going to compare that to a 5 day till expiration option and just see what the differences of those are, and also how theta is affected from a buyer's perspective in terms of option prices and a seller's perspective in terms of option prices. So let's get into it and look at theta on basically a bell curve level, or what you'll see here is more of a linear slope, if you will. So when we're looking at 45 days till expiration, one thing to note is that obviously the most value in extrinsic value is going to be at the money. So theta is basically the rate of decay of an options price. So if we're looking at extrinsic value specifically, we've got the most extrinsic value in the at the money options, because again, extrinsic value is made up of volatility and time. So the most volatility is going to be right at the money, because that's the closest in terms of becoming valuable and not being valuable. And also, when you're looking further out of the money, there's going to be less extrinsic value and less probability of being in the money or out of the money. So there's going to be that slope as you see here. Now, when we compare this to a 5 day till expiration value, you're going to see that it's a little bit different. So if we're just conceptually visualizing this as just a total dollar value, you'll see that of course, the 45 day till expiration curve is going to be higher and have more value because there's more days till expiration, so there's going to be more premium in that. So if I'm looking at an option to sell, there's going to be more premium. It's going to cost me more, or I'm going to receive more as a credit if I'm looking to sell a 45 day till expiration option compared to a 5 day till expiration option. But what I wanted to display here is simply that the at the money options are going to have the highest theta value because that's where the most extrinsic value is, regardless of the expiration cycle. So let's get into what it looks like for buyers and sellers. So if we go to the next slide here, we'll take a look at what an option is. So we're looking at buyers and sellers. So when we're talking about theta specifically, it's good for sellers and it's bad for buyers. So let's think about this as a bucket of water. So if I've got an option that I bought and the value is a bucket of water and the extrinsic value is made up in time of volatility. So if I buy an option contract and I'm basically saying over the next 30 days, I think the stock price is going to go up. So let's say I buy a call and I think the stock price is going to go up. So I buy a call and I'm paying premium for that right to own that theoretical 100 shares of stock for that specific amount of time. So that value, or that extrinsic value, is going to be this water here. So if it's bad for a buyer because we have theta decay, which is the rate of decay of the option price, all else equal. And when I say all else equal, I mean that the price of the stock does not change and implied volatility does not change at all. So if you just freeze the entire operation, if a day of time passes, then whatever your theta value is, that's what the option price should decay by. So if I'm buying an option and I know that the option price is going to decay or decrease, that's going to be bad for me because of the fact that when I buy something, I need to sell it to get out of it. But the reverse is true for selling options. So when I drop this flap here and we start selling options, you're going to see that it's basically a two-way street. So since a contract is a two-way transaction, if there's a buyer and a seller on the contract, if theta is bad for the buyer, then it's got to be good for the seller. So this is one way to visualize it. So over time, as time passes, the option that I bought, if I'm buying a call, it's going to decay. So let's say nothing happened and I bought an out of the money call. So I was gambling. I wanted to just try out a lottery ticket and see if I was right. So I bought an out of the money call. If nothing happened, or if that stock price did not go high enough for that call to have intrinsic value, then basically what's going to happen over time is the option price is going to decay. So if that's bad for me as the buyer, then that must mean it's great for the seller. And that makes perfect sense when you think about it. So if I'm buying the call, that means someone else had sold the call to me. So if they sold it for, let's say, $1, and over time that option has decayed to 50 cents or 40 cents because Theta has been working for them instead of against me, then that's great for them, because now they sold it at $1, they can buy it back for 40 cents, which the difference is going to be their profit of 60 cents. So that's why we always say that Theta decay is good for option sellers and bad for option buyers. And that's basically the case for any type of trade. Even if I'm buying a debit spread, Theta is still going to be working against me. So that's why we like to stick to premium selling opportunities. So when we have implied volatility spikes, which we know is a result of option prices inflating, then once that happens, I have a large amount of premium that I can sell, and Theta decay is going to be high relative to what it might have been if the option price was lower, given that certain amount of days. So hopefully this helps, but now let's take a look at what it means when we're looking at a 45 DTE graph compared to a 5 DTE graph. And we're going to talk about some implications of Theta when we get closer to expiration. So if we go to the next slide here, we're going to take a look at the 45 day till expiration graph, and we're going to just take this look as a dollar value. So again, like we were showing before, the value for at the money options is going to be highest, and it's going to trail off in terms of extrinsic value as you go far out of the money and far in the money. Now when we compare that to a 5 day till expiration graph, you'll see, like when we were talking about with delta and gamma, when I was showing you that the curve goes from very wide to very narrow as you get closer to expiration, you can see that clearly here. So when we have 5 days till expiration, the most value is still going to be at the money, but you can see that since we've already trailed off on the outskirts, basically Theta decay is going to slow, and when we're at the money, Theta decay is going to increase. So let's break this down visually here, and you can clearly see this. So when we've got Theta and we're looking at the money, when time passes, essentially Theta is going to increase. So basically, one way to think about this is when you're very far out in time, like if you're 100 days out in time, Theta is going to appear to be pretty linear. But when you get closer to expiration, Theta basically spikes up for at the money options, because at the money options are still going to hold their value, but now there's only 5 days left. So if I have $1, but it needs to decay over the next 5 days, I'm going to have a pretty high Theta value compared to an option that maybe I sold 50 days out in advance, and now it's got a much lower Theta decay because now it has 50 days to decay as opposed to 5. So that's where that relationship comes into play. So when we're looking at the money options specifically, you're going to see Theta creep up and become much more non-linear the closer we get to expiration. Now the opposite is true for out of the money and in the money options, and that's simply because of the fact that extrinsic value doesn't really exist anymore. So when we're looking at the 45 day till expiration graph, you can see at this first strike here, we still have a lot of value. But if we look at the exact same strike here, there's not much value left. So if I've got maybe 10 cents of value in that option over the next 5 days, of course, it's going to decay still, but there's not really much left for it to decay by. So the more it decays, the slower it's going to decay, and you should see that number go down as you see here. So those are some real key concepts with Theta. One of the biggest things to note is that it's a non-linear value. So you're going to see Theta jump all over the place, especially when you're looking on the platform, because this is an example when we're holding all else equal. So when we're looking at the option price and stock price not moving at all and implied volatility not moving at all, this is maybe what you might see. But since we all know that the stock price moves all over the place and so does implied volatility, we're going to see a very nonlinear and very dynamic Theta value pretty much all the time. So let's get to some takeaways here. So our first takeaway is that Theta is the daily decay of an option price, all else equal. So again, you're going to see this pretty much jump around all the time, but if you were to freeze implied volatility and freeze the stock price, whatever value you see for theta, if you just let one day pass, theoretically that option price should decay by that amount. And regarding whether you bought or sold that option, that's either bad or good for you. And theta decay is good for option sellers, bad for buyers. So again, if I'm buying an option and I know that I'm paying a premium for that contract right to hold that theoretical shares, whether it's long or short shares, over a certain amount of time, I'm basically paying for that, and I know that theta is going to be shown as a negative number for me. On the flip side, if I'm selling the option, theta is going to be a positive number for me because I know that that's a good thing for me. So if I sell an option at $1 and it decays by 3 cents every day, and that theta number is going to be dynamic, of course, but if I freeze something, if I freeze that stock price and I've got it at $1 and a day passes and I know I have 3 cents of theta, the next day I look at it, theoretically I should be looking at 97 cents. So if I were to close that, not including commissions, I would see a $3 profit. And another takeaway is that theta changes as extrinsic value and time changes. So this is really important to note, and especially since there's the most extrinsic value in at-the-money options, you're going to see theta kind of jump all over the place. So it's a good snapshot to kind of take a look at, and basically when we're creating positions, we want to have a high theta value. That's really where we kind of want to make all our bread and butter in terms of the specific strategies we're using, just because the higher theta value we have, if we have a delta neutral portfolio, then that's going to be good for us in terms of just churning the wheels and collecting that premium. Some additional takeaways is that theta is non-linear, especially closer to expiration. So when you go really far out in time, theta isn't really an issue because you'll see that the number is very low and it appears to be pretty linear. But when you get closer to expiration, since it does different things for different options, like we discussed how at the money options the theta is going to increase, whereas out of the money and in the money options, theta is going to decrease. It's going to mean different things, and it's going to send theta in different directions for different positions. And decay increases with at-the-money options, decreases with out-of-the-money and in-the-money options as expiration nears. So this is really important to be aware of. So at expiration, we know of gamma risk that we talked about yesterday, which is the rate of change of delta. And because of that, we also have a very high theta change. So with at-the-money options, we're looking at an increase in theta, whereas out-of-the-money options, there's not much value left anyways in terms of extrinsic value. So there's not much theta to decay in general, which is why you'll see that value drop down. So this has been theta. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you've got any feedback at all, shoot it over to our emails here, support@doe.com or support.com, or you can tweet us at doetrading at doetradermike. And tomorrow we're going to start talking more about strategies. So we're going to get into strangle, and we're going to talk about inverted strangles on Tuesday, which is one of our viewers, Frank, had requested that specifically. So we've got that on the docket. So it should be a next cool few days. So thanks again for joining me. This has been Mike and his whiteboard. Have a great night.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up or share with a friend. Click below to watch more videos, subscribe to our channel, or check out our website.